As written by David Scoff in New York Times, Al Pacino said, "I'm here because I did The Godfather. For an actor, that's like winning the lottery. When it comes right down to it, I had nothing to do with the film, but play the part." It's hard to explain in today's world, to explain who I was at that time, and the bolt of lightning that it was. I felt like, all of a sudden, some veil was lifted, and all eyes were on me. Of course, they were on others in the film. But The Godfather gave me a new identity that was hard for me to cope with. When Pacino was asked, "When you get a call asking you to talk about The Godfather, is there some part of you that thinks, 'Oh God, not again'? Does it ever become tedious?" Pacino said, "Well, no. You expect it. You expect to talk about what things worked and what things didn't. You get a sense that somebody's going to come at you. You just go, okay, been here, done this. But it's cool. It beats talking to myself about it." When Pacino was asked, how did the role of Michael Corleone first come up? Pacino said, "At that time in my life, I didn't have a choice. Francis wanted me. I had made the one film. And I wasn't as interested in film, to the extent that I became interested. My head was in another space. I felt out of place in the early films that I made. I remember saying to my friend mentor, acting teacher Charlie Lawton, 'Wow, they talk about it being real, but meanwhile it's not. Because there are wires all over you. And also, you've got to do it again. You do it and they say, well, go again, do it again. It's real and not real at the same time. Which takes some getting used to.' When Pacino was asked, when did you and Coppola meet? Pacino said, to give a little history to it, Francis was this filmmaker who had his production company, American Zoetrope, and people like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and Martin Scorsese and Brian De Palma were all part of a group. And I remember seeing a few of them when Francis asked me to come to San Francisco after he had seen me in a play on Broadway. Do you know that story? I'm telling old stories now. Laughs. Interviewer said, that's okay. It's why we're here. Pacino said, he saw me on stage in the 1969 Broadway run of Does a Tiger Wear a Necktie? But I never met him. He had written Patton by the time, and he sent me a script for a wonderful love story he had written, which was never produced. He wanted to see me. That meant I had to get on a plane and go to San Francisco, which is something I was not used to. I thought, is there any other way to go? I can't tell this guy to come all the way back here, can I? So I said, I'll bite the bullet, and I went. I spent 5 days with him. It really was special, this film. But we were rejected, of course. I was an unknown actor, and he had made a couple of films. You're a big boy now in the Rain people. So I went back home, and never heard from him again. When Pacino was asked, but you did, eventually. When was that? Pacino said, Panic in Needle Park hadn't come out yet. And I got a call from Francis Coppola, a name from the past. First, he says he's going to be directing The Godfather. I thought, well, he might be going through a mini breakdown or something. How did they give him The Godfather? When Pacino was asked, you didn't think it was possible that he was making it? Pacino said, I've got to tell you, it was a big deal already. It was a big book. When you're an actor, you don't even put your eyes on those things. They don't exist for you. You're in a certain place in your life where you're not going to be accepted in those big films, not yet, at least. And he said, not only was he directing it, breaking into laughter, but he wanted me to do it. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh here. It just seems so outrageous. Here I am, talking to somebody who I think is flipped out. I said, what train am I on? Okay, humor the guy. And he wanted me to do Michael. I thought, okay, I'll go along with this. I said, yes, Francis, good. You know how they talk to you when you're slipping. They say, Yes, of course. But he wasn't. It was the truth. And then, I was given the part. When Pacino was asked, Paramount was famously opposed to the idea of your playing the role. Pacino said, well, they rejected his entire cast. Laughs. They rejected Brando. They rejected Jimmy Caan and Bob Duvall. There was conflict. When Pacino was asked, I recently watched some of your Godfather screen tests, and you seem to have this hangdog look on your face as you are asked to go through it again and again. Pacino said, yeah, I always had that look. Laughs. It was a facade that got me through these auditions. Because great actors were auditioning for this thing. But here's the secret. For whatever reason, he wanted me, and I knew that. You could feel that. And there's nothing like that when a director wants you. It's the best thing an actor could have, really. When Pacino was asked, but you were not exactly a nobody. You had already won a Tony Award. Pacino said, oh, on the island of Manhattan, things were happening for me. I had done The Indian Wants the Bronx. I was young. I got the Obie Award, and then I won a Tony. Then I got fired from a play. Laughs. When Pacino was asked, what play? Pacino said, I got fired from some play. They let me go. Let's put it that way. You happen to be the lead, but we're letting you go. That's how bad you were in this performance. So I was known in certain quarters. I wasn't looking for work, in that sense, I was engaging myself in things. When Pacino was asked, when you got into the filming of The Godfather, working alongside people like Caan and Duvall, who had quite a lot more movie-making experience, and Brando, who you admired a great deal, how did you hold your own? Pacino said, I thought about the role. I just couldn't articulate it at the time. I could articulate it today. I was thinking that this is a character that could be very effective if he comes out of nowhere. That was my vision for it. I couldn't naturally mention it to anyone because I didn't know how to say it. But I could think it. And I felt it was mapped out for me when I read the script. When Pacino was asked, how so? Pacino said, he's not showing up a lot. He's there, but not quite showing up. I guess a lot of it was just building up to that one speech where he says, I'm going to go get those guys, drug kingpin Sollozzo and corrupt police officer Captain McCluskey, and they all start laughing at him. When Pacino was asked, meaning Michael was being underestimated, and that was something you could connect to and use to your advantage. Pacino said, exactly. But I will tell you, they couldn't have been more comforting, all of them. I was young, I was unknown, and they were so comforting. There was a love there. They understood it, Brando especially. But the others too. They were becoming those older brothers and advisors that they play in the film. Those kinds of emotions and colors in them came out, both in the performance but also in life. They mesh. When Pacino was asked, was there ever a moment during the making of The Godfather that you realized it was going to be as great as it is? Pacino said, you remember the funeral scene for Marlon, when they put him down. It was over for the evening, the sun was going down. So, naturally, I'm happy, 'cause I get to go home and have some drinks. I was on the way to my camper, saying, well, I was pretty good today. I had no lines, no obligations, that was fine. Every day without lines is a good day. So I'm going back to my camper. And there, sitting on a tombstone, is Francis Ford Coppola, weeping like a baby. Profusely crying. And I went up to him, and I said, Francis, what's wrong? What happened? He says, they won't give me another shot. Meaning, they wouldn't allow him to film another setup. And I thought, okay. I guess, I'm in a good film here. Because, he had this kind of passion, and there it is. When Pacino was asked, have you rewatched the film recently? Pacino said, no. I might have seen it 2-3 years ago. It's the kind of movie, when you start watching it, you keep watching it. When Pacino was asked, do you get self-conscious about watching your own films? Pacino said, no. I enjoy watching films I've been in. Sometimes I show them. I say, hey, come this way. Here it is. Hey, it's me, yes. Take a look at this. Well, I don't go that far. But I would if I could. I think The Godfather plays no matter what. But you're surprised when you realize how many people never saw it. When Pacino was asked, you're encountering people who are aware of The Godfather as a cultural phenomenon but haven't actually watched it. Pacino said, they've heard about it. You get that? Oh, I heard. Were you in that? That was a film, wasn't it? Yes. So was Citizen Kane. By the way, I was in that, too. Why not? They don't know. When Pacino was asked, is there anything about your performance that you wish you could change now? Pacino said, maybe I've been spared. It's like when I once lost my wallet in my early 20s. I had no money, but what I had in my wallet, and I lost it. I said, Al, you simply have to forget this. Put it out of your mind, okay? You know what will happen to you if you keep thinking about it. So, what I do is, I don't think about it. When Pacino was asked, who from the movie doesn't get enough credit for their contribution? Pacino said, John Cazale, in general, was one of the great actors of our time, that time, any time. I learned so much from him. I had done a lot of theater, and 3 films with him. He was inspiring, he just was. And he didn't get credit for any of it. He was in 5 films, all Oscar-nominated films, and he was great in all of them. He was particularly great in Godfather 2, and I don't think he got that kind of recognition. When Pacino was asked, there is an intense quietness to how you play Michael in The Godfather that I don't think I ever saw again in your other film performances, even the later times you played him. Was that a part of yourself that went away, or was it just the nature of the character that called for it? Pacino said, I'd like to think it was the nature of that particular person and that interpretation. I can't think of any other characters that I did that could have used that kind of framework. I was a young actor. On part 3, I was no longer young, but that's not my fault. Laughs. When Pacino was asked, but compared to other characters, you're also closely associated with, like Tony Montana in Scarface. Pacino said, well, that character, Tony Montana, was written by Oliver Stone and directed by Brian De Palma, who wanted the heightened reality. Brian wanted to do an opera. All I wanted to do was imitate Paul Muni. Laughs. But if I put Dog Day Afternoon with Godfather or Serpico, I don't see a resemblance there. Would you call Michael more introspective? That's what I would say. And I don't know of any other introspective characters I played. But if I sit down with you and go to the almanac, we'll find something. When Pacino was asked, you received your first Academy Award nomination for The Godfather, yet you didn't attend the ceremony that year. Were you protesting because you were nominated as a supporting actor and not as a lead? Pacino said, no, absolutely not. I was at that stage in my life where I was somewhat, more or less, rebellious. I did go back for others. But I didn't go to them early on. It was the tradition. I don't think Bob De Niro went to one of them. George C. Scott didn't even go. They had to wake him up. Laughs. Marlon didn't go. Look, Marlon gave back the Oscar. How about that? They were rebelling from the Hollywood thing. That kind of thing was in the air. When Pacino was asked, so all of this is contributing to your feelings at the time about your rising fame? Pacino said, I was somewhat uncomfortable with being in that situation, being in that world. I was also working on stage in Boston at that time, in Richard III. But that was an excuse. I just was afraid to go. I was young, younger than even my years. I was young, in terms of the newness of all this. It was the old shot out of a cannon syndrome. And it's connected to drugs, and those kinds of things, which I was engaged in, back there, and I think that had a lot to do with it. I was just unaware of things, back then. When Pacino was asked, when you did win an Oscar, for Scent of a Woman, was there some part of you that still wished you'd won it for playing Michael Corleone? Pacino said, absolutely not. If I think about it now, I would say, sure, I should have won. I'd have 3 Oscars. I would be like the big guys. Laughs. No, I don't think that. It's a serious thing. You're being honored for something. When Pacino was asked, so you're comfortable now with the praise you received and continue to receive for your performance in The Godfather? Pacino said, oh, yes. I am deeply honored by it. I really am. It's a piece of work that I was so fortunate to be in. But it's taken me a lifetime to accept it and move on. It's not like I played Superman. When Pacino was asked, do you have any kind of metric you allow yourself to use to rank your own films? Pacino said, I guess the films I make myself, that I directed and wrote, none of which I think anyone has ever seen, like Looking for Richard or Salome with Jessica Chastain, but I'm talking about myself. I should be talking about Godfather. I don't know why I get on about myself. I don't know anybody else. Laughs. Someone called me. He says, you must be alone. I said, no, I'm here with my ego. Laughs.